Will you pray with me? May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable unto you, my God, my strength, and my Redeemer. Amen. So, this summer we're exploring some of the lesser-known characters in the Bible. They all had an impact on the major characters that we generally call our heroes. And last week we heard about Caleb, who scouted for the Hebrews as they approached the Promised Land. And today I want to talk about a Canaanite whose name was Rahab. Now, you all know that Joshua sent the spies into Jericho to check out the city before it was attacked. They hid in the house of Rahab, which was on the walls of the city, the outer edges of the city. This was not the best part of town. The wealthy folk, the privileged people, would have lived toward the center of town, where they would have been much more protected in case of attack. In fact, we're told that Rahab had a window on the outside of the wall, which would say, maybe not the safest place to be, right? So along the walls would have been, some shops for the less well-off folk, the poor folk, and some housing for those poor folk, and perhaps some of the businesses that could not be located in the marketplace. Rahab apparently operated one of those businesses. She was a working girl. Now it's interesting to research Rahab. I actually do some research when I'm doing this. I know most of you don't believe that, but I usually do. Okay. Because it's really interesting to see how the various sources finesse this issue. Some say that she simply ran an inn. And others say that she'd once been a streetwalker but had reformed long before the Hebrews came. Those sources seem exceptionally uncomfortable that one of the ancestors of Jesus practiced the oldest profession. And yet, those same sources don't seem at all uncomfortable with patriarchs who had multiple wives, or who spent time with women like Rahab. It's very interesting. Because remember that at the time, a woman without a man to support her father or her husband or her son, had two options. Option one was to beg, and option two was to practice Rahab's profession. So she did what she needed to do. Now, many of us have had situations where we've had to take that job that might just be considered below our station. Because you got to do it to make ends meet. We all hear about McJobs, and nothing against that particular company. But, they're not high-paying jobs. And there are people with master's degree doing those jobs. Why? Because they need a job, right? So you do what you have to do. I know engineers who've checked groceries, construction workers who've worked in the fast food industry, and so on. You all know those people. We do what we have to do. In fact, we're encouraged to do what we have to do. But what do you do with that experience? What you do with that chance to make a little money? Do you use the time when you're not doing something that you'd rather not do to go to school? Do you use the time to reach out to our neighbors in our community? Do we use the time when we're not trying to make money to do something that's good for our souls? Do we work to find a way out of where we were? You know what? I believe that Rahab did. That she worked to find a better place for herself. You know, when the men of the city came looking for the spies, she hid them under the flax drying on the roof. So you can see these guys hiding under kind of like hiding under the straw. And then she let them escape out her window through the outer wall of the city. And during the attack on Jericho, she put a red cord out the window so that they would know that this is where Rahab and her family were. Don't attack this point. It's always interesting to me that it was a red cord. But she and her family were spared. Now, some sources say that Rahab married Joshua. Others that she married one of the spies. In any case, she became a hero, and she was one of the ancestors of Jesus. Now, stop for a minute. If Joshua's band had lost, I know we can't imagine it, but if the walls hadn't fallen, Rahab's name would have come down to us, if it came down to us at all, would have come down to us as a traitor. But she's a hero. You know, something maybe more familiar. Benedict Arnold, right? He did something similar, but he was on the wrong side, right? He was on the losing side. If the British had won the war, he would have been a hero, right? And George Washington would have been the traitor. So you have to think about people who do what they believe is right and don't worry about the consequences. Because you never know. You never know what the result is going to be. I always know, well, sometimes I know. Sometimes I know what it is I'm supposed to do. And I have to do it, even if I don't know what's going to happen afterwards. What are the risks? What are the risks that you are willing to take? Are they risks that have the potential of doing good for you and your family? You know, maybe you should step up and take the chance. Sometimes it won't work out. Sometimes it will. Find yourself a red cord and hang it out your window and say, I am taking a chance. Amen?
Amen.